Like it or not, the telephone has made the world your office. This is the Focus Group.
It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
Bueller.
Laugh. And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is the Focus Group with Tim Bennett.
Staunch.
And John Nash.
Keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
We're all business. Except when we're not.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash, along with my good friend and co-host, Tim Bennett. You can find us here every Wednesday live on Facebook or YouTube from 1 to 2 p.m. Or just go to focusgroupradio.com, the only URL, the URL, that's my new thing.
Where did this come from, URL?
I've heard people use it before. URL, that's the only URL you got to know. URL, it means to type it in here. And when you're there, you could also check out our podcast called Unbuttoned. It comes out every Tuesday. It's about 20 minutes long, 3 stories we tackle, a little bit different than our main show here. To all of those who have been following and listening to Unbuttoned, thank you. And to everybody joining us today, thanks for your time. I think we're going to give you a great show. So here we are on the...
Oh, don't even start.
But it's August. When did this happen?
I know.
Right? I mean, it's like... Didn't we have all these goals and plans for the year? Like, just even personal things, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And here we are.
September starts anew. That's what we decided. September was our new goal.
That's our New Year's. Yeah.
I had some respiratory thing last week. I was down at Rehoboth Beach.
You were not. You don't get sick too often.
And I said to you, it's the most sick I've been, as I cough and hack, in probably 20 years. And
you
people I
never
know
got
from the
that sick.
restaurants are sick. Excuse me, I'm just going to start coughing. And a bunch of other people, I know friends down there. I don't know. I haven't heard from Mark and Carl. I don't know if they got sick. Richard's friend Lisa and Amy are sick. Richard's sick.
It's kind of like Rehoboth is a plague town.
I think we went to some bar that didn't clean their glasses. That's what I blamed it on, some dirty bar.
Well, here's the thing. When you try to trace back what you did, like I'm a slave now to washing my hands frequently during the day. So now I know, like, I don't touch my face or anything until I wash my hands, and that really cuts down on germs, right? But you were sick. I mean,
I was in bed sick, like bedridden sick.
Fever, sweating.
Yeah. Freezing cold when it was 99 degrees out, and I had two blankets and comforters on. Yeah, so I mean, I'm alive. Obviously, I'm sitting here, but it's this kind of lingering cough thing, which is just driving me crazy.
So on Unbuttoned this week, we did talk about, something odd happened this weekend for me is I kind of stopped paying attention to the news on Friday. And it was only because we had family visiting, I had yard work to do, clean the house, and I was caught up in saying hello to friends and family and visiting with people. And I barely even picked up my iPad, and when I did, it was only to just check on a couple of emails for work and some of the stuff we're doing with our new client. And so I got back to the city Saturday night. When I turned on the TV, I went right to a movie. I watched a movie, then I watched an episode of The Queen, which I love. The episode where she has to chastise Winston Churchill.
Oh.
Because because he got sick, and it's a really fun episode and well acted. Sunday was when I really just tuned in, and Sunday was when I didn't discover it, but when I learned of the El Paso shooting and then the Dayton shooting, and horrific. I mean, we all go to these kind of big box stores and stuff like that and never even think about it. And what did one expert call it? Like, our world is filled with soft targets. Everything's a soft target, right? About our business.
Yeah, and you probably saw in the news today that there was a motorcycle that backfired in Times Square last night.
Everybody went crazy.
Created mass hysteria. I mean,
it showed security cameras of Times Square, people fleeing.
It's troubling because like you though, I wasn't feeling well. So I turned the TV on and I watched the horrible news about El Paso, and then I'd fallen asleep with the TV on, and I woke up at about 4:00 in the morning. I looked over at the TV, and it said breaking news, and I said, oh, they must still be talking about El Paso, of course. And then I looked again, and it said Dayton.
Yeah.
I thought, what the hell is going on? And
the Dayton shooter was equipped with a bulletproof vest, special headphones to stop the noise, and 2 clips of this ammo that can shoot up to 60 bullets in 30 seconds.
Yep. And I made the mistake of going on Twitter and Facebook and so forth.
You poor thing. Poor thing.
And I was
That's all I'll say.
and I was in the mood for a fight. And I try not to be so political, particularly on my personal page. But everybody, it's not. People don't. It's guns that kill people, or people kill people. It's not the guns, and on and on and on. And I remember President Obama saying this, and this whole idea about mental illness. We're not the only country in the world that has mentally ill people. We're not the only country in the world where people watch violent video games. But we are the only country in the world where people have easy access to high-powered firearms that should be in a military theater. Battlefield, not on the streets of your city. And so which thing doesn't fit?
The AK-47.
Right. We don't own mental illness as a country. We don't own video game. So it's the easy access of guns. And I see all these people that are coming to get your guns. And some people that I actually thought might have been more educated or thoughtful. Some of the things that they've said on social media, and I thought, man, I can't even engage you in a conversation, because when you look at, someone had done a chart, when you look at what happened with Columbine, and so Columbine was when President Clinton was president.
That's a huge domestic terror.
But you look at Columbine, and that was a mass shooting, and then we had the ban on assault weapons. And when the ban dropped in 1994, we've gone tenfold in terms of mass casualties, meaning 10 or more people killed. And, Gilroy, that was only 3. If you hear only 3 or 4, it wasn't a big deal, right? I mean, we become so numb to it. And the fact that Moscow Mitch or Putin's Mitch or Massacre Mitch or Mass Murder Mitch and Loophole Lindsay and Mass Murder Marco and the rest of them will not open their mouths about this, and at least do what is wrong with a background check?
By the way, and it should
a background check to get a puppy.
Or a license. It should be noted that a majority of Republican voters support stronger background checks.
Even gun owners do.
And look, my sister's husband is a very, very careful gun owner. He has a collection of beautiful pistols. He is the most careful guy in the world. He respects them. They have a special place. He would be like, he's like, these assault rifles make absolutely no sense. No. Okay, so you could be a sportsman, you could own one, you could do target. I get that. I really do. And I don't want to tell someone not to do that, but
I was in ROTC thinking about when I go into the military when I was in college, and I did it for 2 years, and we were given one of those rifles to shoot. And I'll tell you, we were petrified.
You're holding a gun.
And it goes off like you can't imagine. And
the recoil,
you realize how scary it is to have this sort of weapon thing. And
power.
Right. And there is absolutely zero need for that to be available. If you want to go to a shooting range out in the desert and shoot it and see what it's like to shoot the gun, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But it doesn't need to be something on the streets. It'd be like me saying, you know what, John, I decided I want to drive a tank. I want a tank to be my car.
And I don't like that car. I'm going to crush it.
I'm going to drive the tank to the DMV and say, I want to be licensed to drive this tank.
Well, you need to. Yeah.
Is it okay? Yeah. Probably not.
So earlier, I saw a statistic that was interesting. I believe the United States represents 4.5% of the world's population. Could that be? If we have let's say we have 9 billion people on the planet. We're 300 million.
350 million.
So let's say this thing said something like 4%, but we own 45% of all guns on the planet.
I'm sure.
Those numbers just should tell you something, in my opinion. So it's like our use of resources. We're this small, but we use 80% of the world's resources. We're this small, but we have 45% of the guns. I think what's so and the only reason I wanted to discuss it was what's so disheartening to me is it seems like if you want
lack of leadership.
And the fact that these are difficult conversations, or are they? Are they really that difficult? I was watching a news piece the other day about a woman who was going to the store to get her kids backpacks for school, and it breaks your heart because you know what's shot up in the wake of these 2 shootings is the sale of bulletproof backpacks.
Yeah, I was shocked when I saw that too. I couldn't believe it.
One company, it was a 200% increase overnight. One was a 300% increase. And then they showed one of these backpacks on a dummy, and they showed what happens when a pistol stops the bullet. And then they took an AK-47. Doesn't matter if you're wearing that backpack or not. That is a battlefield weapon. So the woman just sits there and she looks at the camera and she said, I never thought in my lifetime, she said, I never thought as an American citizen in my lifetime I would be buying a child of mine something with the words bulletproof. And then she stops and she goes, it's the world we live in. And that's the part that kind of gets me. It's the world we live in. It's the world we don't have to have. We don't have to have this. There can be a dialogue. There can be an intelligent conversation. And the NRA has chosen a position that is so intractable that they believe if they move 1 inch, maybe even a fraction of an inch towards background checks, that they're going to be ceding something away. Like, we're taking your guns. No. I have to have my eyes checked and I have to have a photo taken every, how many years for your driver's license, right?
If you think the framers of the Constitution ever imagined
they had muskets.
The amount of firepower that would be
muskets.
available, that's the sad thing about it for me. And I don't know. I find it all very disheartening, and I think the Republicans.
Hey, how about that? Andrew Sorkin wrote that column in the New York Times begging the CEO of Walmart as one of the biggest sellers because of just the size. What a fascinating business thing, right? To say you have the power to actually do something, stop selling the guns. Now,
and everybody says you can't get the guns off the street. Maybe that's the case, but maybe for these weapons that we deem not appropriate, you raise the price.
60 rounds
raise the price of ammunition to.
That was another one.
$1,000 a bullet.
In fact, that was another article I read. Someone once said, you have a constitutional right to a gun, but it never said anything about ammunition.
Right.
No language says you have a constitutional right to ammo. That one fascinates me. That's like cigarettes. If you make the bullets so expensive, if you make those ammo clips so crazy expensive, I don't know. So in other words, there's a lot of interesting thoughts going on, like that one about you have a right to the gun but not the ammo, or can businesses perhaps step up and do what they've done for so many other social things and lead the way and say we're not going to sell them? But it never gets past the launch pad.
Well, I'm more and more interested in when President Obama's book comes out as to what he has to say. And unfortunately, probably President Obama's too nice. But what he has to say about Mitch McConnell, because
I'm sure nothing that he was like a sparring enemy of his.
Right, well, they said they had created this scene where they said he had this grimace on his face when he went to tell him that even though you have another whole year in your term, I'm not bringing forward Merrick Garland for the Supreme Court, and just how he relished that. And I just think, what a smirky, swarmy. Apparently, this Moscow Mitch thing has got him all tuned up. And I don't know, there was T-shirts that say, just say "niet," and there's a picture of, I was going to get them for us to wear on air. And he's got the little Russian cap on.
Not to belabor the point, but I've been saying for a long time, you have too, for the last year and a half, we have been saying consistently, the president can do and say what he does. He can do the Twitter stuff. He can do all that. But the real power in Washington lies at the majority head of the Senate. The Senate as a body, as a deliberative body, it's longer terms.
Yep.
And the power of the Senate is amazing. 2 per state, regardless of the population of the state. You got 2, and Mitch McConnell is rarely does.
He's got 2 beauties.
There you go.
Rand Paul and Moscow Mitch, Massacre Mitch, Mass Murder Mitch.
So not only do you have the ability to literally just stop all legislation, like there's a bill that the House passed on sensible background checks. And now now the Republicans are like, well, no, we don't want to take that bill up, but we are going to come up with our own solution. But the people's house, the representatives, voted on this, right?
I don't know what it's going to take for people to go into the streets again, but it almost feels like it needs to be to that point.
You know what? I actually thought with the movie theater, that was in Colorado, right? And then the shooting, that Batman movie years ago, with the Walmart down in El Paso, is it going to take someone doing something crazy at the Mall of America? Something like an institution like that. Well,
everybody says the turning point was when it was okay for the 20 kids in Sandy Hook, which is a town right next to where we grew up.
Yeah. Did they keep that? Did they demolish that school?
And you still can't get near there. Every time I go home, I go that way to get to my parents' house. My parents live about a mile and a half from there. And that's where we got our hair cut, and we would go, we
Hook,
spent a lot of time there. But it's weird now because every time I go, that's the first thing I think of. I think about how horrible it must have been for those kids because they all ran out into people's houses all around. It's a little hamlet. It's a tiny, tiny little place. But that's all anybody thinks about anymore. And when you do go home at the holiday time, people still put out the memorial stuff because it happened around Christmas. But it forever changes these communities. And someone said,
Lifetimes.
it's touched all corners of the country.
And to imagine being a parent and to watch the dysfunction in D.C. for all these years, how disheartening. You lose a child to something ridiculous and stupid, and the first thing they say is, "Oh, we got a mental health problem." Yeah, check. But there's other boxes to check too, like the ubiquity of the firearms. It's
well,
just
even the on a different topic was the argument over whether we were going to extend benefits for the 9/11 first responders, which Jon Stewart has fought and fought and fought.
And guess another Kentucky pal of ours held that up.
Yeah.
Rand Paul says,
So
how long are we doing this for? What about our deficit? Well, he was part of the crew that passed one of the biggest tax cut deficit exploding.
Right. And whenever a hurricane blows through one of the trailer parks, they're the first one with their hands out looking for federal money.
My only hope is that voters, hopefully, regardless of where you're at in the spectrum, I hope you're getting the hypocrisy and the irony of the whole thing. It's power and money, power and money, power and money. There's, I don't mean to be like, but hopefully our vote will change things come down the road.
Got to vote.
Got to vote.
That's the
So,
importance.
on that note, what caught your eye?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Something lighthearted
It actually is a feel-good story.
after I feel bad.
Yeah, this took place in Arkansas, and a mom. It says that the headline is Arkansas mom buys all the shoes in closing Payless store and donates it to kids in need. So
They were as a closeout because they went bankrupt.
right, so all the Payless shoe stores are going out of business. So this mom went in with her daughter. They went to get these special shoes these little kids like, and it said that I just want to make sure I get it right. That the woman's name is Carrie Jernigan, Jernigan. She's a mother of 3. And she went to the store and she was buying a pair of shoes for her daughter to go back to school a few weeks ago. And her daughter said, "Mommy, can we get a pair of shoes for a friend of theirs in the neighborhood?" And mother says, "Why?" She says, "Well, she can't afford shoes."
Imagine a little kid saying that.
She says, "Can we get her the same pair?" So the 2 little kids were playmates and wanted to have the same pair of shoes. So mother says, "Well, how much are they?" So they get. So the mother says, "Okay." So then it hit the woman as she was standing there. She said, "How much would it be if I bought every kid's shoe in the store?" Kind of jokingly said. And she said before she knew it, the regional manager had contacted her. They had 400 pairs of shoes, of kids' shoes in the store, and she bought them all.
Did they tell you how much?
She said she would not say how much she spent. She said, "My husband's going to kill me." She said, "I can't believe I did this."
Credit card.
You can see in their house, they brought all the shoes in for
yeah.
kids, and they separated them up. But she said, "My receipt said that I saved $21,000. She said, "But it's a fraction of what I actually paid." But the real retail cost was you saved $21,000.
Yeah.
So she went and they bought all these shoes, and then she contacted the school board. She'd done some work. This is the Alma School Board in Arkansas near Fayetteville and Fort Smith, and said, "Hey, I've got all these shoes for any kids that need new shoes to start school off with." And so they set something up locally at the school where parents came by and got shoes for the kids. And then the whole town has kind of now embraced this. And she said that one anonymous man went up to her at the event and gave her $1,000 and said, "I don't want, just keep doing this for the kids and buy more shoes." So she actually took that. And
So it was an anonymous donation.
And she got a bunch of other money that had come in when people had heard about the story. She was able to go buy another 250 pairs of shoes and brought them to some of the local churches and community centers, and they're also giving them out to kids for school. And she says she received lots of positive notes on Facebook. She says, "That's not what we did it for." She said, "I think my girls were more excited by the fact that we were buying the store." But she said it took them 12 hours, 95 big boxes, a huge trailer, over 1,500 pairs of shoes, and she said, and 3 very excited kids and lots of other happy kids around the Arkansas area to get free shoes. She hopes this catches on, she said. But I thought, what a nice thing to do. God only knows what she spent for them, but
okay,
what a selfless act of
As you were reading this, I had a thought, and I thought to myself, the husband might kill her. He won't, but he'll understand the beauty of what she did, right? But I suspect that was a charge of, I'm guessing maybe $3,500.
Well, I was trying to figure out, so if they were say the shoes, I don't know what kids' shoes cost now. They are expensive, but it's going out of business. So
everything's half off,
80% off.
Yeah. So let's take a pair of shoes at retail for $30, right?
And it's 80% off.
24 off.
Right.
Right. So now you're looking at a pair of shoes that's $5 or something, or $6. So let's say she gets how many pairs? 1,500 pairs?
1,500 pairs. So maybe $8,000. It's still, you know what? And then she's got donations in or whatever. But
so she can actually smartly take that charge and claim it as a charitable deduction.
I'm sure.
Because if she gave it all away, that is charity, man. But the reason I love this story, or one of the reasons I love it, is because it was spur of the moment.
Right.
So she was inspired by her daughter saying, "I want an identical pair for my friend who can't afford them." Boom, light bulb goes off. I'm going to make something good happen. That's a good story. I like that.
Yep. So that was I found that one online. So
and sadly, mine's wah, wah, wah.
Well, that's the joy of it.
Mine's a bit of a Debbie Downer. Headline: A judge says to plaintiff, the parents can sell your house. So it's apparently that a woman, 37, her parents bought the house for her, or they put the money down. They ran into some tax problems. Well, I'll just read it. In a ruling Tuesday, a judge in Vancouver sided with the parents in a dispute over a home they had helped buy for their 37-year-old daughter. The parents wanted the home put up for sale because they ran into tax trouble and needed to access some cash. But the daughter balked, claiming it was her home, even though the parents had paid $110,000 of the cost. It's unclear what percentage of that is actually the whole house cost. And now the dispute has reportedly ripped the Canadian family apart because the parents took the kid to court. And we were fair, the mother told the Vancouver Sun. We were never vindictive to our daughter, but we've lost our daughter now. I just don't know how it can be repaired because it's done so much damage. According to the Sun, the court case revealed that whenever their adult son and daughter needed something, their parents were supportive. The parents reportedly paid for their children's education. Their vehicles were covered. The cost of their daughter's elective surgery, they don't specify what kind of elective surgery she had, and helped finance homes for both of them. That's my first thing I thought, elective surgery. In the Sun's case, the home financing was a loan that the son repaid. The daughter, however, argued that the land, title, tax bills, and day-to-day care of the property all suggested that she was the rightful owner. British Columbia Supreme Court Justice Robert Punnett noted that the case was made more difficult because, as in the case with many family financial arrangements, documentation was lacking, and the bitterness resulting from the dispute made it difficult to assess the credibility of the family members. The parents had advanced $110,000 to their daughter, blah, blah, blah.
So they gave her $110,000
while she was studying at Royal Roads University. So they paid. So basically, they advanced her the money to buy the house.
And then they wanted the money back.
They needed money to pay some tax bills, and this was an asset they had put money into. Yeah.
And so the daughter never paid anything back.
No.
What do you think of this?
I think it's a prime example of why you should never do this unless you have a very clear document, and that's still going to screw you up because this is that whole.
When you give money to people, you know you're not going to get it back.
Now, Tim, you're so wise. You sound like my mother's father, my grandfather, who I adored. He used to always say to me, Johnny, if you're going to let someone borrow money, make sure that it's money you never want back. Because if you give it with the intent of not getting it back, then that's fine. But if it's a loan, it's going to cause all kind of problems because if your friends or family, it's problematic. How do you chase down a family member? You got to pay that. So parents took the girl to court, and now there's a breach that they're probably never going to speak to the daughter again. I'm just curious as to why, if they had the resources to let her do that, you would just think that's an investment on a longer horizon, right? Even if she didn't pay it back. I mean, you know what I mean, right? It just strikes me as like, I don't know, it's dicey. It's dicey.
Well, you can't be giving your kids everything all the time and then all of a sudden call it back.
No, especially this one item. You can't say...
Because they paid for education, you said, they paid for cars, they've done this, they've done that.
And the air quote elective surgery.
I never understood.
It could have been a deviated septum. We don't know that it was a boob job.
I never understood that well, I'm not going to make a judgment on it, but I think if you can pay for your kids' education, that's great. But I think, I think you have to have skin in the game. I don't believe in that whole free education thing.
Yeah. And I'm with you there. That would be like all this, all this talk about loan forgiveness, student loans.
Yeah.
You and I had student loans. We paid them back.
Yeah.
And the key there was I didn't go to a school that made me go to $250,000 in loans.
No, and you could have gotten into a school that made you do that. And I remember me not choosing one of the schools I wanted to go to because my mother said you can't afford that, and it would have been
Thank you.
would have been
I remember
exponentially a lot more money.
Senior year of our high school, you and I were both applying to 5 or 6 schools.
Yeah.
And I know one of mine was way more money than I was. But whether I got accepted or not is immaterial. I could never have gone there, yeah.
Well, that's like one of our classmates got into Yale, and I remember she could not go because she ended up going to UConn, University of Connecticut, which is equally, I'm sure she got a great education. But Yale does have a name and it does have a pedigree, and it would be great if she got to go. But she's like, we can't afford that.
Back then, it was $40,000 or $50,000 a year.
It's
Now it's 70 or 80. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, school education's gotten crazy. And I saw this some days. Someone said this to me the other day. They said, if your degree has studies at the end of it, you're probably in the wrong field. Women's studies, gender studies. And you get out with $250,000 worth of debt. Well, guess what? That's your mistake.
I've read articles where people's lives are like. There's a woman that's suing Betsy DeVos. Have you heard about this? So there's like a class action suit against Betsy DeVos, who's the Secretary of Education, because she's held up this loan forgiveness program, and so all the joint defendants or the plaintiffs are claiming that this is ruining their lives. And the woman talks about it's $250,000 in loans. She'll never pay them back. She has to always be ahead of garnishment of wages. There's taxes. But I look at that and I'm like, how did you let it get up that high? To make the kind of money you have to make to pay that down.
Mortgage payments.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, and even if the interest is like 1%, you're still accumulating all that money. So, hey, me and Tim put ourselves through school. I had a great education. I paid it off. And I remember the day I wrote that last check for the last student loan payment. Oh, my God. I was like, oh, my God. There's quite a sense of accomplishment for that, too. Right? You had jobs in college. I had jobs. I had 3 jobs every semester. Yeah. I don't know. Well, wait, I do know. I would prefer people to go to an institution they can afford. And there's some really great, like you and I talk about this all the time. Community colleges are fantastic.
Listen, my 2 nieces, I'm very proud of them. They put it together. They figured it out.
Get your 2 years in, go to a great community school, transfer up to a bigger one, put 2 more in. Now you're looking at a vastly different cost structure, and
they did it themselves, and they're more appreciative.
Which makes them I think makes them great problem solvers and more resourceful.
Yep.
But
business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
Happy 87th birthday today to Genevieve Goudreau. You know her as Jenny Craig.
What was the name again?
Genevieve Guidroz. Guidroz. Guidroz.
Is Craig a married name, or is it a name?
Married name.
Okay.
Jenny Craig. American weight loss guru and founder of Jenny Craig, Inc. She was born in Berwick, Louisiana, and married Sidney Craig in 79. In 1983, she and her husband created a nutrition, fitness, and weight loss program in Australia, which I was surprised about. And then they began offering the program in the United States in 1985. The company became part of Nestle Nutrition in 2006. So they rapidly expanded when they entered the U.S., opening 46 locations by 1987 and 114 foreign countries. By 1991, they underwent an IPO, which generated $73.5 million. But then they had some issues with weight loss drugs. Remember in the 90s, there was a big thing about weight loss drugs. People were taking all those drugs.
Which is basically speed.
Right.
Wasn't it speed or something?
And so they had costly leases and employee training issues, and the stock tanked. And 2006, they announced a signing of a definitive agreement to sell the company to Nestle for about $600 million. And then Nestle sold it in 2013 to North Castle Partners for an undisclosed amount. They've done a lot of work. Susan B. Komen, they've given a lot of donations to educational institutions, to open up either business or health schools at different places. Also very involved in horse racing, which I'm not going to get into. They did lots of horse racing. But the thing that I found funny, April 1995, says, while reposing in a favorite armchair and napping.
Reposing, okay.
Jenny Craig was startled awake, which caused a strange medical anomaly that mimicked lockjaw, but it wasn't, as Craig eventually was able to pry her mouth open. Though which seemed to be no imminent threat, this condition gradually worsened, making it difficult for her to speak or eat. Her mouth was shut. So her dentist diagnosed her with temporomandibular joint syndrome.
TMS, they call it something, lockjaw.
I guess.
Yeah.
She was referred to a specialist through no avail. She ended up seeing 18 different specialists. Her mouth still shut. That's a better way to lose weight. All of whom provided various suggestions, but ultimately no solution.
You know who would say that? Put the funk down.
So,
What was that?
Gene Nitish. From April 95 until the spring of 98, she's had this condition. She finally saw a cosmetic surgeon, Dennis Nigro, who assessed that she had suffered atrophy of her mouth muscles. So they gave her, maybe because she wasn't eating for 3 years, so they gave her corrective surgery and put in some bioabsorbable screws in her cheeks. She underwent a 4.5-hour operation and had to go through speech therapy to learn how to talk again. So she's fully recovered.
Are you serious?
Happy birthday, Jenny. Look and see, I love this. So somebody's gone online and they posted where all these Jenny Craigs are located. Look at that, between Five Guys and Chipotle, next to the Honey Baked Ham.
In other words,
Apparently, the average person in a year how much weight do you think the average Jenny Craig person loses?
I'm going to say 7 pounds.
4.5.
Oh, my God. I was actually thinking of 4 or 5, but I thought I had.
But, I think it's good. She's going to teach you to eat better. But I just thought this whole thing about lockjaw with her.
The lockjaw thing is really, that's bothered. Like, could you imagine?
While reposing in a favorite armchair and napping, she was startled awake, which caused a strange medical anomaly. Mimicked lockjaw, but it was not.
Very weird.
She was able to pry her jaw open.
Tim, that is such a super weird fact. I'm glad she's better, but
87.
Could you imagine going to 18 doctors to get this thing done? Oh boy. I hear this and I'm like, okay, I stubbed my toe the other day. If that's the worst, I'm fine. Hey, many of you know that Deep Discount is a partner of ours here on the Focus Group. Go to focusgroupradio.com, look for their logo, which is a shark, and click your way to savings. I got to bring the puppet back.
Yeah, where's the puppet?
Well, the puppet's taking a break. You can't have puppet all the time, but I'm going to bring the puppet. Guys, I got the sleeve thing. I can do my puppet. And I have to really practice puppeteering.
Maybe next week you do the puppet.
Well, no, we can't. Well, good idea.
Next week.
Maybe next week we do the puppet. We love Deep Discount, big partner of ours here, friends of ours. And the team in the marketing department lets us pick from a bunch of sales, which we really like. And this week, the sale is New Hollywood Era. And they called the New Hollywood Era the 1960s to the 70s, which the reason I picked it was because I knew me and Tim were going to have a lot of fun going down this rabbit hole. In fact, there was a lot to pick. So what did you pick?
Well, I struggled with whether I would pick this or not, but I did only because of the camp aspect of it.
And the season?
In this season. It's Muscle Beach Party, which was released in February 2015.
No, it's
re-released.
Muscle Beach Dance Party.
Yeah, Muscle Beach Dance Party. And it, it's got Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello. Have you ever seen it?
Oh, my God. The minute you say Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello, they were like the it couple, for these movies, especially for the surfer beach kind of thing.
Right. Came out in 1964.
Even the typeface on the cover of it. Yeah.
Came out in 64. But Don Rickles is an obnoxious trainer for bodybuilders called Jack Fanny. And
Don Rickles, insult comic.
Oh my God! And he's dressed like the whole thing is just such high, ridiculous camp, and the kind of bullet bra and bikinis, and everybody's dancing.
And even the girls, they're high waisted.
Right, and they're all dancing. Everybody's dancing. It's supposed to be muscular guys, which now that we would look, you'd laugh at what was considered muscular and fit then. But it's just such camp that I remember me seeing it one time and just my mouth open. And I just couldn't believe it. So anyway, you can get it on Blu-ray or DVD. DVD is $8.50. Blu-ray is just under $20. But Don Rickles, Annette Funicello, Frankie Avalon, Buddy Hackett.
Buddy Hackett, right?
What's that?
It's Don Rickles and Buddy Hackett?
Yeah, both.
Oh, because Don Rickles isn't listed here. Never mind. Sorry.
Huh.
But Buddy Hackett's supposed to be the trainer.
Well, they've Don Rickles here as the trainer in the description.
All right.
Jack Fanny is unlikely. He's unlikely fun in the sun, but it seems unlikely, but it's fun in the sun. It's when it says he's the unlikely trainer. But it's got a cast. It's got quite a cast. I didn't list them all, but it's a slice of Americana that I don't think would ever be made again.
Oh. Well, and no. There you go. Where is the audience, right? I picked a movie that I just...
Eyebrow.
Well, it's a classic. It's considered a Hollywood classic. It's Paper Moon on DVD, directed by Peter Bogdanovich. Depression-era mid-America. It stars Ryan O'Neal as Moses Prey, a smooth-talking con man who makes his living hustling personalized Bibles to recent widows. In the movie, in real life, Ryan's daughter, Tatum O'Neal, in her record-making Academy Award-winning role, co-stars as Addie Loggins, a precocious orphan who becomes an invaluable partner in crime. Do you remember Paper Moon? When you first saw it? I think it's one of those. I would definitely pick it up if you haven't seen it in a while, and I'm sure that the print you'd be picking up is one of the ones that's been remastered. If you watch it on broadcast TV, it has sometimes the print they show has this old look to it, but I recently saw a restored like as if you went to see it in a movie theater, and it really sparkles. It's a really well-made film. Madeline Kahn's in it as well, and a young Madeline Kahn, and anything that Madeline Kahn is in, I tend to like. So, Paper Moon on DVD. And the release this week is a movie that I'm actually pretty interested in, and I think Tim will be too. It's called Amazing Grace on DVD. So it's a movie about Aretha Franklin, actually. In January of 1972, she joined with the choir at the New Temple Missionary Baptist Church in Watts, and the live gospel album that resulted, Amazing Grace, became her personal bestseller as well as the genres. This documentary chronicles that, and it's shot by Sidney Pollack, chronicles the Sidney Pollack shot performance, and it has been tied up in litigation. This is weird. This film has been tied up in litigation for over 40 years until now, and it's a restored presentation of so they went back, they cleaned it up.
What would it be tied up for? Do you think she didn't want it released?
I bet you...
Or they didn't agree on how they were going to split money?
That, and I bet you there's something about the recording rights. There's got to be something about Amazing Grace, either the performance or whatever it is that...
Getting clearance.
Yeah, and
I wonder what her death made, because I almost think, well, with her death, has it made it easier for them to release it now because she's not...
Hey, she wouldn't be a party in the lawsuit. The family would be, I suppose, yeah. But yeah, when I read that, I'm like, tied up in litigation for over 40 years, and I couldn't find much more about it. So it looks great, though. Yeah,
I saw that too. I thought that's a must see.
Well, it's Aretha, and it's a young Aretha, especially when she's almost when she's really at the top of her game. There you go.
Great. So head over to focusgroupradio.com, click on the deep discount logo, start shopping away. As we said, right now it's the new Hollywood era 1960s and 70s sale going on. And you can head over to Deep Discount to own your passion. I recommended Muscle Beach Party. John recommended Paper Moon on DVD. And the release this week is Amazing Grace on DVD. What do you have to say for us, Garrett?
Thanks, Deep Discount.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, John had teased at the beginning of the show that he had found this article about how phones have somewhat taken over our lives. I guess nobody would disagree. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. Focusgroupradio.com is the URL.
Yeah, you with this Earl.
I'll quit the Earl part after today, but Earl. I've seen other people do it. That's why I picked it up, the URL. Anyway, check out focusgroupradio.com, and you'll also learn about our other audio-only podcast called Unbuttoned, which drops on Tuesdays. 3 short stories, usually under 20 minutes. Tim says it's commutable. If you're in an urban area, I call it stairmasterable.
Stairmasterable.
Oh, new word, invented word.
Be careful.
Great article in the New York Times, accompanied by many fun pictures, which brought me back.
Question for you before you start. Do you pay for the New York Times?
Yes, I do.
I can't see a lot of articles. I got to pay for the articles. Do you buy just the digital?
I buy the digital edition.
What's it cost?
$12.95 a month usually.
It's a lot of money.
For the amount of reading I do, and a lot of it comes out of that paper.
Is there a way to get it for free?
You're allowed to access up to 10 articles a month, I think, for free, before it goes behind like paywall stuff. Why did I send this to you? And
I can't look at them.
until I send you the notes.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm not allowed on.
Why don't you just subscribe?
Because I'm trying to be frugal with my money. That's why I'm asking about this. Washington Post is the same thing. I can't do New York Times, can't do Washington Post. Ad Age now has blocked me out.
Yeah, I know.
Ad Week.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I don't subscribe to a lot of magazines anymore. Velo News, Bicycling, and that's about it. I mean, I used to do Wired, Entertainment Weekly. I mean, you remember all the... I had a ton... You used to get a lot of magazines at work for your media stuff, but... so to me, it's a no-brainer to pay for the Times. I would just do it. It's like $100 and some bucks a year, really.
All right. Did you know the guy was killed on the bike in Belgium or Poland?
Oh, that was a recent. That was a freak accident. The guy was 22 years old.
He just rode in the Tour, right?
Yeah, pro cyclist. He was riding in another race. Bad weather, supposedly perfectly good bike handler, but had an accident, was alive. They resuscitated him. He died on the operating table. So whatever happened to him,
Some internal thing.
yeah.
I saw that. I was.
Hey, I remember on the cycling front. By the way, it was an exciting tour this year. Even though I know crickets are chirping,
Who
and no one
won?
pays attention.
Any team from anywhere?
Team Ineos won top. Ineos, which is the old Sky team, British team. So Geraint Thomas took second, and Egan Bernal took first. 22-year-old Colombian, never like.
Did they test him?
Those headlines started popping up immediately because everybody's like, how could this person ride these rides? He did great in the Alps, and there was a couple things that happened in his favor, like in the Alps. They had a hailstorm, which resulted in mudslides and flooding, which like covered the road. They couldn't finish the race, so they ended one of the stages early, and they took the times of the riders at the top of one of the mountains. The rider who could have had the advantage of descending faster and had made up the time lost that advantage, so that went to Egan Bernal. But one of the riders in the Tour recently was interviewed, and he said, people lose sight of the fact that we're riding at 40 miles an hour. When the peloton, you've seen them in Paris, shing, they go by. And the only thing protecting them from anything is some nylon when they hit the... right?
Yeah.
So you go down, it's your body going down. So the article that was from the Times that Tim got to read when I did the show notes... So that's why you must be surprised when you read some of these, because you only know...
can't read them.
You only know the headline that
That's
I
all
sent
I know.
you. So what did you think of this article?
I liked it. I liked the pictures that accompanied it. So if you're watching us rather than listening, you check out the video version.
We'll
'cause
describe.
There's some great pictures that accompany the article. You and I have talked about this a lot, and we refer to it a lot, about how phones have made us. I think the biggest issue, particularly with cell phones, the significant thing that happened to all of us was a cell phone made you always available.
Bring it up in here too.
And it always made you available for work.
Not just talking to the kids
Which I think has really been the big issue. People can't turn off.
Yeah.
And if you go on vacation, the old days of going on vacation and just going on vacation and not worrying about what may be going on at the factory or the warehouse or the office or wherever it is you work until you get back, those days seem to be gone, particularly now with phones, because the phones are your lifeline. And if you lose a phone, here's my problem with the phones.
Tell us your problem with the phones, please.
Well, here's what I was thinking. I don't take my phone with me to restaurants or stuff because I don't like people always looking at them. You look at your phone all the time. Get your phone here now.
It's face down.
Doesn't matter. You get your phone. You could get that. They might hear something. If that thing buzzed, you'd be
sitting
flipping
right
it over. I can't get up over there and get my phone. But I feel like I need to take it with me in the car in case I got in an accident or something, or there was an emergency. So I understand that. But if I lost my phone, I was thinking about this today after I read the article.
Which you couldn't read before because you don't subscribe to the New York Times.
I don't subscribe to the New York Times. And I couldn't read it on my phone. If something happened to me, say I didn't have my phone with me and something happened and I needed to call somebody.
I don't remember numbers.
There's only one or two people. I know your number because I've known your number since before we had cell phones. I know my parents' numbers because of the same thing.
Same here.
I think I know my neighbor Brian's number and my friend Kate, and that might be about it.
Yeah.
Because they were pre-cell phone and people I still.
Yep.
But if somebody said to me, "You need to call Matt about the dog," I wouldn't know it. If I got hurt or stranded somewhere, it's either one of three people whose numbers I remember, because with cell phones now, do you know people's phone numbers?
Yep.
I think that's dangerous.
Well,
I think you got to print them out.
all right, so two things. First, this article in the Times talked about, they focused specifically on a man named Martin Cooper, who was the person who basically invented the
brick phone.
brick phone, the cellular phone. He's still alive. I think he's 90. He turned 90 last year. And the second thing you're talking about, though, is the notion that we've now offloaded short-term memory, basically. I used to have to remember 6 numbers. You know, it was the office, it's the answering machine, it's this, it's this, it's
Or
this.
voicemail. What's the number for voicemail?
And you did that so often that it was boom, 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 boom. So, yeah, I agree. And contacts, calendar, everything's in that brick. And you lose the brick, you've lost the brick. And you've had that happen where you've left it here at the studio, and you're kind of able to cobble it together with an iPad and your computer until that phone arrives by FedEx, though. You're like, oh, it's back.
And I got rid of the landline at home finally. I think you're the last holdout.
Ours is not really a real landline. The number is, but it moved to one of these 4G little devices, which in another year I can give it up, and now I'm wondering about that. But so I'll describe some of the pictures. So that one of the pictures we're showing is Martin Cooper outside. He just walked out to 6th Avenue, I think it was, and he made a phone call from this enormous thing. In fact, that particular phone looks a lot like the one they describe later in the article that Michael Douglas used in the movie Wall Street,
Right.
when he's walking down the beach telling
The brick phone.
the brick phone, Buzz.
Which, how much did you see how much they said it would be in today's dollars?
10,000.
Can you imagine?
$10,000.
$39.95 in 1983.
Yeah.
That just goes to show that money that we, if you had $3,
Wait. It was $3,995
$995 now, and $10,000. I think that's big inflation.
Huge. And I'm going to make you rich, Bud Fox, as Michael Douglas is.
How much did they say that phone weighed? It was like 2 pounds or something.
Yeah, and he said you wouldn't want to talk any longer than that because the phone weighed too much. And it had a battery lifespan of, I think, 20 minutes.
20
right?
minutes for the phone.
It weighed about 2 pounds and took 10 hours to charge. 10 hours. On top of that, you could talk for only 20 minutes before it went dead. It was called the Dynatac. That's the name they gave
I
it?
had one.
So let's go through some of the other pictures. We'll describe them to you if you're listening. So that's a funny one. On the left, there's a picture of a car pulling into it looks like it could be pulling into like a
That was the
McDonald's.
greatest invention ever made. When I used to live in the Midwest,
Phone from the car?
Subaru, that was the greatest thing.
So it's a phone booth at
the car.
At the leg,
right up at the height
of the window.
There was one in New Haven at Christmas time. I found. I was delighted. I could go check you sit in your car and you got your book and tap, 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 tap.
Are you serious? Do you use these things?
All the time.
You use
In
that?
the Midwest, you couldn't get out of the car. Too cold. So we'd pull up and you would talk from there.
And they show a picture on the right. We have a woman and that's the car phone. That was the one that was plugged into the car, so it wasn't
Or the
a battery.
bag phone, sometimes they were called.
Exactly. What's the next one we got up here? I forget who that gentleman is on the left, but he's holding. The caption had a name for him, and his profession was. But he's got a briefcase phone. Remember the briefcase phones?
Similar to look at her at the restaurant thinking she's.
The antenna up.
Do you have a cigarette in her hand?
No.
That would just complete that picture.
And then the last one, I think, is oh yeah. So this is a collection of 4 photos we're showing people. They were all taken around a public phone kiosk in the old Penn Station, which is the new Penn Station, by the way. It's still as disgusting as it was back then. But do you remember the lines for payphones and stuff like that?
And if somebody would hang up, you'd pick it up and it would still be warm against your ear. Now, what people are so crazy about cleanliness. So if you think about it, nobody ever cleaned those.
No.
You picked it up, you put it on. You picked it up, you put it on. So all day long.
No one had Purell. They didn't have wipes.
Think about how filthy people are. And I think about that now. I can't imagine that I was putting that phone in my ear. Garrett doesn't even use soap. So
Garrett, do you love the way he's looking right at you when that comes out from the
I,
phone to that?
I just love how it's like an earworm. It just been in his mind for the last 6 months that I told him. He can't get it out of his mind.
You know what? I'm going to tell you what I did. I did a little experiment, Garrett. I had a little BO because from I was working outside, and I thought, ooh, I kind of stink a little bit. So I went and took a shower, and I thought, I'm not going to use soap. So I, went under, and it was clean.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I didn't trust it. I used soap afterwards.
Do it for a week. See what happens.
That's because Procter & Gamble's got him
Got me hooked.
brainwashed beyond belief. But yeah,
But those phones now, see that phone bank there. There's the Trenton train station that I go through
they
now.
still have them.
And people are on them all the time.
These?
I don't know who's calling.
They
Who's
have
doing what?
payphones?
People, there's always 4 or 5 people. There's a bank of about 10 payphones when you go in, and there's always somebody on them.
I remember phone booths.
Well, New York had them everywhere.
And you're lucky if you got a phone booth because you can close that door. You're private.
Well, as long as someone
Little
had peed in it in
sliding
New
door,
York.
yeah.
Otherwise, it used to smell.
So,
The phones change your life.
so this guy, the inventor, said, "What did Mr. Cooper say back in the day when critics predicted that the availability of the phone would be a curse?" And he said, "My first response was, well, we do have an on-off switch on every phone. You don't have to answer it." Okay, pragmatic. But my more profound response is that the cell phone is still really new in society. I have an overweening belief in the intelligence of people. We are going to figure out how to communicate with other people and live complete and wholesome lives. Yes, I'm concerned, but if you think about all the other distractions, somehow humanity has managed to survive. When the TV first came out, I spent hours watching wrestling.
I saw that and I laughed.
Yeah.
My grandfather used to love
But then he did say, Mr. Cooper believes the good that cell phone technology can do, spark productivity, and franchise the poor, far outstrips any downsides. He always buys the latest iPhone, which surprised me, though he gives the phones mixed reviews. Extraordinary in terms of tech, but needlessly complicated from a consumer point of view. True words were never spoken. I mean, as a child, you knew how to either dial or push. It was not... Did a phone ever come with a manual back
Apple
then?
has made things very complicated, if you ask me. Don't you think?
We need that Andy Griffith song.
I watched Andy Griffith the other night, too.
Of course you did. It's one of your
8
favorite
o'clock
shows.
on MeTV. It's really good TV.
It's a moral show. You learn.
It is. And it's approved by the evangelicals. That's one thing that let their kids still watch. There's always a lesson. Opie lied about getting lunch money last night because he was
lie?
getting beat up. He was asking Aunt B for a nickel for milk and his father for a nickel for milk.
You had to give the money at school
He
to the
would
bully.
beat him up on the way to school. And if he...
So you fingered him for the money.
So he got 2 nickels, so that way he would still get milk and he would get beat up. And Barney was going to step in, save it all.
But he had it. Did Opie resolve the problem himself?
He had to talk to his father about it and got a lesson. And then everything was all good.
Oh, if it weren't that way today.
Yes.
So simple and clean.
And there was a female speeder in the next episode, and she charmed Barney and Floyd the barber, and then they turned against Andy. And
Oh, she was a speeder.
yeah, so she got out of her speeding ticket. And it's just such a... I really enjoy the show.
Well, clearly you do. You're lit up like a Christmas tree.
Hey, listen, it's sadder than news. So, hey, thanks for joining us today. I want to thank Garrett and Steve and Dante and you, John, and our friends at Deep Discount. Be sure to head over to focusgroupradio.com and click on the Deep Discount logo. Start shopping away. It was the New Hollywood era this week, for the 60s and 70s. I picked Muscle Beach Dance Party. John picked Paper Moon, and the new release is Amazing Grace. And you can also find out at focusgroupradio.com all about us, our shows on both audio and video platforms, as well as our podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned every Tuesday. Remember, don't text and drive, arrive alive, and have a good week.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.